What are these drones? What is this news story? Anyone that says that they know exactly what it is lying to you. So we don't know. We're all grasping at straws. What we can do is take a critical thinking approach and work through what is most likely going on here. And that's what I'm going to do today. Hey, welcome back to Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, educator in Los Angeles, bringing viewpoint diversity to everything going on in American culture. And probably the biggest news story right now are these drones that are showing up all over the place, especially off the coast of New Jersey and even inland in New Jersey. So thousands of people are reporting seeing a whole bunch of drones, and a lot of them are big. I've talked to people like friends of mine that saw them and sent video. They said they're like the size of an SUV. This is a big news story, and it's a great example of how we don't trust the government. We don't trust the mainstream narratives. We don't trust the media, and we're not getting a lot of answers. And it's another example also of just the lack of transparency. You know, like we're in the age of the internet now. So information isn't concentrated in the hands of just a few people. That could be the government. It could be William Randolph Hearst, who bought up all the newspapers. It's not the way it works anymore. You know, everyone with a phone and an X account or an Instagram is able to be a media outlet now. So you can't control the narratives so easily. Everyone kind of has a voice. The lack of transparency is something that goes back a long time. You know, like what's actually going on? You know, and that was happening with COVID. That was happening, you know, all the stuff that Edward Snowden revealed about collection of metadata and the mass surveillance of American citizens and everything. It's broken trust over and over and over again to the point where people are like, well, whatever you say, I'm not going to believe you anyway. But the news story, for those of you that aren't following, is essentially that thousands of people reported seeing big drones at night just kind of hovering, you know, above them. And from my understanding, I'm not a drone expert, but I dove into this a little bit to try and explain it to people. Drones don't have great eyes, so to speak. They don't have great capability to see at night. So if they're going to fly at night, it's going to be using like thermosensors, like to pick up heat or pick up something along those lines. It's not going to be to like map out an area. So what are they doing up there? And they're massive, and there's a bunch of them. And you know, it just leads to speculation. You know, one of the things that I say all the time is where ambiguity exists, assumptions are made. So if you don't tell me what's going on, I'm going to make assumptions, and those assumptions are going to be based on my just, you know, rudimentary understanding, my kind of like pixelated view of what's going on. And that's what's happening right now is there's so much ambiguity about what these things are that people are just running with it in their mind. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of help to like guide that towards, you know, the truth of what they are. Donald Trump recently said in a press conference that the government knows what they are. He said the government knows, he knows where they launched from, he knows what they are, or the government knows what they are. I don't know. Okay. But he said they know what they are and they're just keeping it quiet, which then feeds more of that narrative of the government's, you know, keeping things from you. And I think that a lot of people that are more conspiratorial minded, you know, tended to lean towards Donald Trump. Was more of like the anti-establishment candidate in the 2024 election compared to Kamala Harris, who's more establishment. And if you are, you know, more like conspiratorial minded, you know, you're the conspiracy theory guy, which I love it. You know, this hat's made out of tinfoil. So I'm with you. But you tend to go with, you know, the people that are less, you know, established. So one thing that's happening now is it's prompting people to look up. So there could be an element here. I'm just going to throw out a whole bunch of different ideas just to get you to think, because I don't know what these are, and no one really does, or no one who's talking openly does. But one thing that's happening is, you know, when a couple of people started reporting it and sharing videos online, then a whole bunch of people went out and looked up. If you spend time outdoors just looking up at the sky, you see there's a lot of stuff up there. You see satellites. You know, I was out camping with my family last year and I saw like a string of like SpaceX satellites going up. And I was like, what is that? I had no idea. It looked crazy. It looked like a UFO. It's just a string of all these lights, you know, shooting up through the sky. And then just like a quick, you know, text and Google search. And I was like, oh, those are SpaceX satellites. But if you're not used to looking up, you're going to see, whoa, there's a whole lot of stuff up there. And what's happening is now people are looking up. They're looking for it. You know, if you're not if you're not looking for something, you're most likely not going to find it. But if you are looking for something, you're far more likely to find it. So I always say, like, it's like a contact lens. If you lose your contact lens on like a carpeted floor and you're not looking for it, the chances that you just looked at it and go, oh, there's a contact lens down there, it's very rare. But if you say, oh my gosh, I lost my contact lens, everybody, let's get down on our hands and knees and look for it, you're much more likely to find it. So if you're looking for suspicious lights up in the sky, you're going to find them. And now, I mean, I would venture to guess that in the last couple of days, we've had more Americans going outside and looking up at the sky, looking for something mysterious up there than we have in a very long time. So when they see something and they're not sure what it is, they're going to call and report it, or they're going to go on social media and report it. And then that's just going to grow exponentially because people are on their social media feeds and they see like one after another, after another, after another. You know, I was getting texts from friends that were like, hey, you know, I saw this one over my house and I saw this one. I saw this one. You know, I think that's happening a lot. This video of a John Ferguson was posted and it got millions and millions of views. And he is a drone expert. He constructs military grade drones. And in this video, which is about 10 minutes long, he broke down what he thinks they are. So save you the 10 minutes. Essentially what he said was, what they would be doing it's a pretty low altitude. What those drones would be doing is most likely sniffing for something. What he means by sniffing is having sensors to be looking for something. That could be a gas leak, but it could also be, he went into a little bit, and this is again, like taking a leap because where ambiguities exist, assumptions are made, but it's taking a leap that there were several nuclear warheads that during the kind of de-escalation and stifling down the nuclear armaments after the Cold War arms race, Reagan, you know, was like disabling a bunch of nuclear warheads, and some of them just disappeared in the Ukraine. Like they just disappeared. And then what he says, and he claims to have, you know, some inside track information on the goings on of American government. He said that there was intel that would say that one of those nuclear warheads was headed for America. So what he suspects is that there's a nuclear warhead somewhere around New Jersey, and these drones are flying at that altitude to try and pick up on the radioactive material that would be released from a viable warhead. And that's what they're looking for. I don't know, but if that's the case, that's scary. You know, what is a nuclear warhead doing? But it would also make sense that the government wouldn't say, hey, guys, there's a nuclear warhead. So, you know, watch out, because people will freak out. You saw how people acted during COVID, you know, running, getting toilet paper and stocking up and things like that. Imagine if they thought that we are on the brink of nuclear war. You know, we're ramping up the war with like long range missiles and stuff in Russia. Russia is the biggest nuclear power in the world. They have more nuclear arms than even America does. But that idea is one, that they're down here kind of looking for something. It could be a gas leak, he said as well. But in order for it to be a gas leak that would pick up on the thermal sensors, it would have to be a pretty significant one. But he said his guess was that they're looking for some sort of nuclear warhead or something that was picking up like radioactive material. Michael Shermer, who is the editor of Skeptic magazine, so he doesn't buy into conspiracy theories. That's like his whole shtick. He posted that it's most likely just like airplanes, and people just don't look up at the sky much. That they're reporting things that are just dubious reports of these drones, and they're not, you know, and they're actually not drones. They're a whole bunch of other things, or they're just personal drones that people are flying over their neighborhood just to play around because, you know, they have these toys. You know, a lot of photographers and stuff have drones. Could be. Okay, you know, we do often want to apply Occam's razor. If you're not familiar with Occam's razor is basically, it's the simplest explanation is most likely the correct one. That you want to take away all of the variables and get right down to the basics that, you know, most likely what is this? You know, but we don't really know. But perhaps most likely it is people aren't out looking up at the sky very often, and there's just a whole lot of stuff up there. There's satellites, there's drones, there's small airplanes, there's commuter jets, there's big jets, you know, there's military, there's helicopters. I'm in Los Angeles, so there's all the what they call ghetto birds. You know, these helicopters are flying over looking for criminals and stuff. You know, it could just be that people are picking up on that, but we don't know. You know, at the end of the day, the White House just came out and they released a press release. And what they said was a couple of things. They said, we don't know what they are, but don't be concerned, which that's not comforting. We don't know what they are, but don't be concerned. Well, why should I not be concerned if you don't know what they are? How can you say that? It's kind of like, just going back to the vaccine stuff, it's kind of like when they would say safe and effective, or, Sesame Street was promoting, your 4-year-old go and get the COVID vaccine. And they say it's safe and effective. It's like, how can you say that if it's never been tested on a 4-year-old in any kind of long span of time, and any kind of like longitudinal way of like, how does this affect them as their growing body develops and things like that? They just don't know. So you can't say that you know it to be safe, because you actually don't know that. And that's kind of, the vibe that people are getting from the White House. What they're also saying is that it's not foreign, because when it first came out, they said that they might be Iranian, that Iran has these drones that are, setting up and everything like that, which again is scary. They set up these drones all around different areas. I'm out here in California, and some were reported out near here in a place called Murrieta. They saw these drones, kind of just getting these strategic locations, and then they just flip a switch and they start dropping things, because some of these are big drones and they could have weapons on them. They could be like Predator drones dropping bombs and missiles and stuff, which is terrifying. You just kind of set this up, and all of a sudden we have, a robot war going on with a foreign nation. But the White House said that it's not foreign nations. Okay, so that's good. Again, how much do you trust them? I don't know. That's up to you. But they said that it's not foreign nation. I would assume, again, Occam's razor stuff, I would assume that if these were foreign nations, especially like from a place like Iran or Russia, that we would shoot them out of the sky. Like, you can't just fly a Predator drone over American soil. It just doesn't fly like that. So I would assume that we would have taken military action right away. So I tend to lean on that side. Again, you can disagree. But he said that the White House said officially that they're not foreign. He said they're not a threat, and it's most likely manned aircraft, which aligns with what Michael Shermer said, that people are just, misdiagnosing what these are. But people want answers. And I think that's the big kind of takeaway from this news story, is we're going to figure out what these are most likely, in the next couple of days, weeks, months. I hope. Some things just remain a mystery, but hopefully if we stay curious, we the citizens stay curious, and we keep demanding answers, that people will get those answers. Part of it is the free market element of media. If, NBC News got an exclusive break on what these drones are, boom, it boosts their ratings and boosts their clicks, and that's good for them. So I think it's in the interest of the media companies to give people answers to what this is. So that's like a positive element of the free market reality of our media today. There's a lot of negative elements, because people just go for clickbait. People just will if it bleeds, it leads. The divisive stuff that gets people all fired up, that's the stuff that'll sell. When Donald Trump won the election in 2016, Les Moonves, who was the CEO of CBS, said essentially that Donald Trump is bad for America, but he's damn good for CBS, or something along those lines. It's like he sells. So I think we can apply that. There's a lot of negative elements of the market forces being applied to media, because you get the media you want, not necessarily the media that you need. It leads to silos and echo chambers and things like that. But in this case, because there's such a demand for answers, I am guessing that media outlets are trying to figure this out so they can provide those answers for the people. And I think that's a benefit. That's the cylinder radio, is the two sides of different topics. But I think as long as we stay diligent, we stay looking at this, we keep asking questions, then we'll get to some answers. So as far as where to go from here, I think that we just have to, remain open. We have to remain open. You can't say that we'll never trust the government. We can't say we'll never trust this news source or that news source, or we'll always trust that news source or that news source. But there's enough curious people on it that I think we're going to get answers. But this is a call for more transparency. This is a call for the government to explain more about what's going on, because the more they try to get a grasp of narratives, the more it's going to slip through their fingers, because you just can't do that. The times have changed. And now there's a massive abundance of information, including false information. But there was false information forever. It's just that false information was was more mainstream. It was kind of, pushed by on high and the people that own those outlets to kind of go to everybody, where now it's kind of sprinkled in. It's hard to find out what's true and what's not. But that's just a brief rundown of what's going on with the drones. I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are on them, and we'll just have to stay tuned. But I hope this gave you a little bit of like an overview of everything going on. If you're not catching up on the news and things like that, if you hear people talking about drones, you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. That's essentially what's going on, and we'll figure this out as we go. So thank you guys so much for watching and for listening, and I'll see you next time.